Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley here for EllenHudson.com. Thanks for joining me today. In this month's edition of the Ellen Hudson In Touch newsletter, I thought we would take a look at a double slider card featuring some of the new stamps and dies from the Essentials by Ellen September 2018 release. There's a whole slew of fabulous new products, and I'm going to be featuring the Mountain Holiday stamps and coordinating dies. These remind me of holidays as a teenager. We used to go skiing in Lake Tahoe, California, and I love how this solid portion of the mountain can stamp quickly inside to fill that outline image of the mountain, or you could color it in with markers. So it gives you lots of options. So before we get to the slider portion of the card, I'm going to go ahead and stamp out, color, and die cut all of my images that I'll be using so I can kind of plan out my scene. And I'm starting out by inking up these images using a Copic-friendly black ink, and I'm stamping them onto some Neenah Solar White heavyweight cardstock. Then I'm going to take these little tree images. This is a couple of separate images here, and I'm going to stamp them in some various shades of green. I'm using the Catherine Pooler Melon Ice, Green Tea, and Eucalyptus inks. And you can see, even though these are brand new stamps, I haven't inked and stamped them before, they are stamping beautifully on my first try. So I love that. And you'll see that even more here with this solid portion of the mountain. So I've never inked this and stamped it before, but I'm inking it up in the Catherine Pooler Blackjack ink, and I'm stamping it inside the outline portion of that mountain, and it's stamped perfectly solid and smooth. Now, if you prefer, you can stamp the solid portion first onto your cardstock and then stamp the outline portion, which is what I'm doing here for this lighter gray mountain. I use the Catherine Pooler Twilight ink and then that same Copic-friendly black ink as before. So I have a different kind of gray mountain there, so it gives a little variation to the scene. Now for my images, I'm using coordinating colors of Copic markers for the color palette that I had chosen. But I'm not doing any shading. And I think we often forget that we can use our Copic markers and we don't have to always use 4 shades. We can just use one, put down a flat color, and the images still look really great. So if you're a little intimidated by doing all of the shading, especially on these smaller images, you can just lay down a flat wash of color and be done with it. And it keeps it quick and easy. So now I have all of my colored images stamped, die cut, colored, they're ready to go. And I'm grabbing a couple of these dies from the Essentials by Ellen Swing and Slide die set. There's a whole bunch of options for slider cards in this. I'm using that shorter straight track and this longer kind of hillside kind of track. I don't know what to call it. And I'm die cutting it from an A2 size card front. So this measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I actually cut it down 1/4 of an inch. So the final dimensions end up being 4 by 5 1/4 inches. And you can see when I remove the dies, I have these perfectly placed tracks on the front of my card here. Now I want to make my little skier dude move, and I want to make that gondola move. So what I'm doing is I'm positioning them in place on my card front, kind of at the angle that I want them to be, and I'm temporarily adhering them in place using a little bit of delicate surface painter's tape. Then I'm flipping these over to the back side and I'm adding foam adhesive here. Now I used some foam dots here. Shouldn't have done that because they're too like round kind of. So my images were kind of rolling along the track and that's not the look I wanted. So I'll show you how I remedy that. Now we're going to add the coins. This is all of the money, all of it, that I have to my name right now. That totals 53 cents. That's because I have 2 teenagers and 1 child in college. And every time I get cash, it's gone. So I emptied out my entire wallet, 53 cents. I'm a rich woman, and I'm going to use about 11 of those cents to create this card. So that's how much I love my brother who's going to be receiving this card. So he got like what? Like 1/5 of my money? I mean, that's pretty good. That's like 20%. That's pretty good return there. That's how much I love my brother. So let's move on. I was finding that these images were a little bit small to totally conceal my coin. So what I did was I punched a circle out of some Neenah Solar White cardstock, and I'm adhering that white circle over the top of my coins using a glue dot. That's going to disguise my coin. Now keep in mind here that if you are using, say, like a blue base for your card, so if your card base is going to be made out of blue, you would want to punch that circle out of the same color cardstock that you're using for your card base. I happen to be using white, so that's why I used white here. Now, remember we talked about those foam dots not really being a great kind of adhesive for these sliders. If you want them to roll along the track, a circular foam dot is perfect for that. But I wanted these just to slide. So what I've done here is I've taken 2 layers of foam adhesive and I stacked them on top of each other. And then I'm cutting these small kind of long pieces so that these are going to just slide along that track. Then I'm removing the backer from the other side of that adhesive and I'm placing my coins with the cardstock piece facing the front of my card. So I want that to be the visible portion, not the coin. So that's why I've positioned this here. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove that painter's tape from the front of my card and I'm going to start positioning some of the other elements onto my card front. Now I am using a single layer of foam adhesive behind these mountains and a portion of the trees. So that meant I needed to go back and add more layers of foam adhesive to my little slider elements, that gondola and that little skier dude. So I'm going to go back and fix that later because there wasn't enough room by the time I put the card base on there and everything. I recommend that if you're going to use foam adhesive on the card front, that you add an additional layer of foam adhesive to your slider pieces as well. So now I'm going to make my card base. This is cut to 5.5 by 8.5, and I am scoring it at 4 1/4 to make a top folding A2 size landscape card base. I hardly ever do landscape cards. I don't know why, but I just don't. And I am adding a double layer of foam adhesive all over the back of this card front, but I'm being careful that none of this foam adhesive impedes the movement of those coins across the card. So I don't want to put foam adhesive where it's going to stop my coins. I want those coins to be able to completely move across. So as you're adding your foam adhesive to the back of this card front, you'll want to make sure that you're moving that coin along the track and that you're not impeding that movement at all. Now, I thought I had the camera turned on, but I did not. And so what I did was I put my card front into my MISTI and I stamped that It's Christmas or Xmas onto my card front. And then I stamped it again onto a scrap piece of Neenah Solar White and I colored just the skis with my coordinating Copic markers, and then I used the die cut to cut those out, and I'm going to pop that up over that stamped sentiment on the card front there. Now, while I add some finishing touches onto my card, I'm just going to draw a little line for my gondola here. I'm marking out with a pencil kind of where I want the line to start and end, and then I'm going to use a Copic multiliner to draw that onto my card front. But I did want to mention, you saw me grab kind of an older penny, and the reason for that was because I really just wanted to keep the shiny penny. But in the end, it was not the best choice because I found that that older coin was actually a little bit thicker than the newer, shinier pennies. So, you know, we're getting cheaper and cheaper here in the US. And so our coins are getting thinner and thinner. And so if you use the newer coin, it's actually a little bit thinner and it moves a little bit better along the track. Now you can see I totally jacked up my card. I had to recreate this card front. It was no big deal. I was able to salvage those pieces that I had adhered onto the front, but I wanted to go back and add another layer of foam adhesive to my slider pieces here. So I ended up with 4 layers of foam adhesive behind the skier and behind that gondola, and that helps them move a lot better. So there's 2 layers of foam adhesive behind the card base, and there's 4 layers of foam adhesive on the gondola and the little skier dude. If I had not added elements onto the front of my card using foam adhesive, I probably could have gotten away with 3 layers of foam adhesive on my little skier and my gondola. Now, a couple other ideas for making these move a little bit freer. You saw me there. I prepped the track with a powder tool as well as the side of that foam adhesive so that those could move more freely. And for my little skier dude, I actually popped him off and I backed him with a second die cut to make him a little bit heftier and sturdier. So as he moves along this track, he's not going to get, ruined or beat up. So that's just a little tip for making that die cut a little bit sturdier for this moving mechanism. So that completes my double slider card featuring the new Mountain Holiday Stamps and Dies by my friend Julie Ebersole. I love the way this card turned out, and I could not stop playing with it. I hope you enjoyed this project, and I hope you got some tips and tricks along the way for making these slider cards work for you. If you want to see more tips and tricks for slider cards, I will have them over at the coordinating blog post, which will be linked below, so be sure to check that out. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you won't miss any of our paper crafting and card making video tutorials. And speaking of video tutorials, here's a couple more I thought you might enjoy. Thanks for joining me, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.